Chosen one. Not all individuals were sent to adore you. They left broken after studying your breaking point. Let it sink in, because what I'm going to divulge will raise your neck hairs. Yes, genuine people walk among us every day without conscience, empathy, or guilt. This isn't a Netflix documentary. Real-time spiritual combat. Psychologists term them high-functioning psychopaths. The chosen see them as spiritually bankrupt predators. And guess what? Someone was brave enough to assign you an emotionally shallow agent. This guy got one job: infest your mind, soul, and spiritual essence. They expected you to collapse like others. They overlooked one item. You weren't a victim. They counted you. Most bizarrely, they came to play the villain, yet needed therapy. What irony. Instead of watching you come apart, they watched themselves disintegrate, tormented by your serenity, bewildered by your stillness, and spiritually burned by your light. By the end of this video, you'll understand you psychologically deconstructed a maniac, not just survived one. You didn't retaliate or rage. You did it by being unshakably entire, what they feared most. Let's begin. First, they didn't expect the monster to identify a mirror. They didn't arbitrarily dispatch that psychopath to hurt you. They expected you to fold. They thought this individual would invade your life, break your boundaries, confuse you, drain you, and make you question your sanity. They didn't anticipate to be afraid when this individual got close. Not because you shouted or fought back, but because your soul's depth, which makes you the chosen one, showed them something they never expected. They didn't expect your reaction. Not clinging to their love bombing. You didn't panic when they ghosted. You didn't surrender to manipulation. Your calm, unbothered, self-contained demeanor made them uneasy the longer they were around you. Why? Because you were the mirror they avoided all their lives. They were meant to expose you, but you exposed every flaw in their facade. You made them feel empty. Off-control psychopaths. They thrive on turmoil because it gives them a false sense of power. When they couldn't offend you, they unraveled. You weren't scary. Your preoccupation wasn't theirs, not giving them pain to feed on. Instead, you silenced them with mask-piercing eyes. They were terrified by its silence and presence. They weren't ready for a fearless opponent. They weren't ready to be examined honestly. Once they noticed you weren't acting like their former victims, they recognized they were out of their depth. So they ran. Not because you were weak, but because you were too strong, clean, and spiritually matured for their darkness to grasp. It wasn't just fear. You showed them themselves. Psychopaths can't endure that. Psychopaths want predictability, but you were an unbreakable algorithm. Psychopaths love patterns. Their control goes beyond habit. Their entire system. Puzzle-like, they examine people. They learn to hit your buttons, imitate your feelings, and predict your reactions. To them, strategy is everything. They know what mask to wear, what phony wounds to portray, and what lies to drip-feed you. It works for most individuals. Most people become caught in their web by being emotionally predictable. But not you. You absolutely disregarded them. They couldn't identify you. You alternated between kindness and distance. One day you were quiet and observant. You were brutally honest and spiritually impenetrable the next. You didn't react to their games like others. You handled it. Didn't chase. No tears or pleading. You continued replying from your divine core, which they couldn't access. Your motivation wasn't ego, fear, or attachment. With spiritual clarity, you moved. A person who relies on predictable emotional upheaval finds that unsettling. You violated their manipulation rules. You walked away without fear. You didn't need their approval. You didn't become confused by their gaslighting. Your energy kept saying, "I see you." They didn't know what to do. You were their first unstudyable individual. You weren't a puzzle. They couldn't decipher you. A psychopath can't predict someone. What happens? They panic. Power is lost. They start erring. Their game relies on anticipating your next move, therefore they spiral. However, your faith, awareness, and emotional discipline foiled their scheme. You were unpredictable and impenetrable. They slipped further as they sought to figure you out. You destroyed their control panel, not simply escaped. Third, you intimidated them with unnecessary items. Psychopaths enter confidently. They think they're in charge because they can influence people's needs. They can give lonely people fake affection, insecure people fake security, and unseen people fake attention. They trap you by feeding on your hunger. Their plan went awry when they met you. You didn't need their products. You didn't need approval. You didn't want love. You weren't seeking selection. That alone eliminated their power before they could use it. Psychopaths lack strength. They're chancers. They slip into people's identities through cracks. You had no emotional debt. You had silently healed. You knew solitude. Self-validation was your forte. You didn't have open wounds to bandage. You considered everything they offered unnecessary. You weren't impressed. Nothing moved you. You weren't grateful. That confused them. They were furious because they were in a predicament they hadn't prepared for. A baitless target. Sex couldn't attract you. They couldn't captivate you. They couldn't utilize guilt since you weren't ashamed. You weren't resisting them, which was most horrifying. You honestly didn't need them. This shocked them more than rage or confrontation. They departed because. Therefore they spiraled. Because you couldn't be owned, not because you attacked. They come for your emotional hunger. They only discovered a sated soul. Full you were. Full of spiritual freedom, clarity, and peace. Manipulators lose interest and power when they realize they can't abuse you. The game finishes then. You stop being a target when they realize you can't be lured, manipulated, or emotionally starved. You become a menace. Number 4, your aura revealed their hollowness. Psychopaths live by appearing powerful. Like costumes, they wear confidence. They mimic emotions, study behavior, and charm. It's all drama, designed to fool the weak and wow the unaware. But when they got closer, that act collapsed. Because your aura did what words could not because you spoke or fought. It revealed their performance's hollowness. Your presence differed. Though you didn't dominate, you were powerful. Power without shouting, showing off, or needing an audience. Your energy was calm but powerful. That unsettled them. Their phony strength used to amaze others, but next to you, it felt cheap and foolish. You remained calm while they intimidated you. They cranked on the charm without melting you. You refused to play their roles. So the mask started slipping. They felt like frauds because of your sincerity. You were solid and clear. Your spirit and energy were calm. Psychopaths fear clarity because it reveals what they've hidden all their lives. Lack of substance. They lack spirituality and center. Everything about them is curated. You were real. Your strength was lacking. You were strong. They sensed it as they went too close. People left because of that. That's why they unraveled. Because their power appeared like cheap magic juxtaposed to your purity. Your light exposed and humiliated them. Being recognized for who someone truly is terrible when their identity is based on illusion. Number 5. They weren't sent to smash you. They came to measure you. They believed they were the predator going to destroy you within. They were the tool, not the threat. Heaven let them near you for one purpose. Show your mastery of oneself. Not how loud you could yell, but how calm. Not how hard you could fight, but how much you trusted your gut. That psychopath wasn't punished. Their purpose was measurement. When they entered your universe, your true strength emerged without force, drama, or needing to prove anything. They tried all methods: mind games, passive aggression, love bombing, emotional confusion, withdrawal. Instead of reacting, you watched. Let them tangle in their web instead of falling into it. No screaming, chasing, or pleading. You didn't justify yourself. You didn't even try to communicate. The test revealed something about you, not them. Because everyone can act wisely in peace. Being around a chaotic person reveals actual self-mastery. You stay focused. You avoided their delusions. You kept true to yourself. You flipped the script. You weren't rated weak, measured against your strength. They failed badly. You've outgrown the traps that worked on the previous you, not because they weren't good manipulators. You completed shadowing. You faced your wounds. You clarified yourself. Now, not even a disguised demon can rock your foundation. They entered with the intent of pushing you over. Instead, they lost their way. Their universe comes apart when you don't move, and their game is centered on shaking others. You become the test, not just tested. They failed spectacularly. 6. You starved their demon. Psychopaths seek more than power. Your suffering helps them breathe. It fuels them. Clarity comes from your bewilderment. Your collapse delights them. Your mental turmoil empowers them. They're not joking around, feeding on you. Every tear, doubt, and self-doubt feeds the devil on their back. When they met you, something unexpected happened. They weren't fed. They didn't get the drama they wanted. You left their demon at the dinner table in quiet. No bleeding occurred when they poked your wounds. You didn't explode when triggered. They tried to confuse you, but you persisted. That went beyond self-control. It was spiritual battle. Most folks don't get this. Psychopaths go beyond manipulation. They generally hold darker substances. That something requires your emotional collapse to survive. But you shut off its source. You held up. You remained silent. You remained intact. It was emotional, spiritual, and energetic fasting. Starvation overwhelmed their demon. They became irritable without justification. Your tranquility makes me uneasy, because you weren't hurt. Your well was dry. Neither do devils like droughts. They shrivel. That was happening. The spiritual parasite expected a feast. Instead, it entered famine. When deprived of energy, an evil spirit runs, not merely weakens. That's why they ghosted, blocked, or lashed out one more time and left. It wasn't chance. A retreat. Not only were you hard, your spirituality was repulsive. Instead of shame, insecurity, or confusion, you had limits, discernment, and a soul too pure for their poison. That worried them. They fled because of that. Your psychotic survival was not complete. You exiled their monster by starving it. Seventh, you saw the script before they performed. They thought they were running the game, but you read the script before the first scene. So, regarding chosen ones, you sense more than energy. You detect spiritual blueprints. Patterns are truthful. People do. You were used to their charm, phony empathy, and well-timed vulnerability. That felt familiar. It was the same weary recipe in different accents and looks. Instead of getting caught up in their performance, you examined it like a rerun you knew the ending of. The act captivates most individuals. They want to believe in love, connection, and the best in people. You don't do fantasy. You're honest. When they made their first move, you timed the framework. The artificial bonding, baiting, contrived tenderness, and confidence loss. Nothing baffled you. You calculated. You spotted their angle before they leaned in. Your inaction definitely threw them off. Just watched. While taking mental notes, you let them think they were in control. You weren't defending, setting a trap. You were tired of snakes thinking they were smarter than you, not out of pettiness. You weren't idle, being surgical. You collected evidence for every red sign you missed. You silently read their playbook every time you fell for one of their falsehoods. You didn't yell when you'd seen enough and the act was too sloppy to continue. You didn't beg. You vanished precisely. Without warning, closure, or scene, gone. They were surprised because they thought they had you. They had no idea you were 10 moves ahead reading their tactics like an old script with weak characters and a predictable plot. You beat their game. Number 8. They planned a fight but had a burial. They came for a response. Yelling, screaming, confusion. Anything to shake your spirit and feed their power fantasy. Such is the plan. They were ready for that script. Provoke you, then say, "See, you're the problem." They practiced it. Because they feel in power when you react, manipulators like them define themselves by conflict. But this time, energy was against them. You didn't fight. Your body held up, not the chaos they wanted. Instead of igniting a fire, they faced their fate. You weren't helpless, became the mirror. When an illusionist meets a realist, things fall apart quickly. They didn't anticipate their own darkness to emerge, but your silence mattered. Your calm was hot. Your boycotting their games was a spiritual call. Masks slipped. Their lies fell apart. Your clarity destroyed the picture they spent years creating. Exposure replaced setup. You awakened their demons silently. Their collapse was caused by you not swinging. Because a persona rots without food. Yes, it happened. You didn't destroy them. The reflection in your presence shattered them. Revenge wasn't needed. You needed no proof. You just had to be yourself. Your light did the work. Another round of control was their expectation. Instead, they witnessed their phony self's death. It wasn't war. It was buried. Only the mask they could never wear was buried that day. 9. You weren't afraid because you've seen worse in your family. You didn't panic when that madman tried to frighten you because turmoil wasn't new to you. News was old. So you weren't afraid since your spirit has been tested in the hardest arenas. Your family. The wolves masquerading as protectors. The silent coldness behind forced smiles. And the poison in stinging words have been seen. You've been manipulated, betrayed, and abused by your caregivers. The psychopath didn't start a new storm. They repeated the trauma you endured. Thought they were scary. But you were a military veteran. Nobody discusses it. You remembered being emotionally besieged by individuals who should have loved you unreservedly but couldn't. Gaslighting, mental games, and sudden outbursts were your first professors. The dysfunction that should have broken you fortified your spirit. Not simply surviving. You survived the ghosts that caged you. So the psychopath, however loud or cruel, didn't introduce anything new. They just rekindled old hurts you'd healed or overcome. No wonder you weren't terrified. Because of that, you avoided their trap. You've met worse. You've spent gloomy evenings with genetic relatives. Each survival gave you additional armor. Not only did you strengthen, your wisdom grew. You learned more than self-defense. You recognized patterns before damage occurred. There was no new enemy when the psychopath appeared. A familiar tale tried to repeat itself. You closed that chapter without hesitation since your history wasn't all pain. Your training ground. Number 10. You were the first unassisted target. Psychopaths love control and the rescue game. They appear as your savior, understanding your pain better than anyone else. The hero who rescues you is a ruse. That rescue is a trap. They lift you up only to break you down again, profiting from instability. Most people are exhausted, bewildered, and yearning for approval after this cycle. Your soul wasn't injured and in need of salvation. You were complete before they arrived. They were most afraid of that. Their attempts to pounce, show compassion, and win you over failed. Not needing their help, you didn't want it. Because of your firm basis, you didn't need their approval. No weakness to exploit or vulnerability to grip onto. You weren't a woman in need. You were strong. This rendered their regular methods worthless. Lack of dependency means no control. Their power fades without control. They tried harder, reached limits, and were desperate, but nothing worked. You didn't believe the rescue story. You didn't believe their lies. You saw through it because you were your own hero. This made them despise you. Because you didn't need to fight, not because you resisted. They couldn't break you. They were weak and vulnerable. You were the first target who didn't need saving in a world where many battle for strength. You arrived whole and indestructible. Truth is a psychopath's worst enemy. Number 11. Your spiritual immunity rendered their games outdated. Demonically driven people feed off your trauma like parasites. They seek holes, open doors, and other vulnerabilities to exploit. Your recovery went deeper. Like fire and time armor, it was deep. You cleaned up their target area so their poison couldn't enter. Not only serene or unbothered, you were immune. This immunity doesn't mean apathy. A deep spiritual restoration rewrites how energy flows through you. After understanding, facing, and releasing previous triggers, your spirit no longer reacts to them. No longer can you manipulate your nervous system. Their falsehoods, mental warfare, and threats hit an invisible barrier. Their attempt to disturb your tranquility failed. Not simply quiet, a spiritual firewall thwarted their plans. Gaslighting, guilt-tripping, and pandemonium were antiquated because they were weaponizing pain you no longer carried. Your recovery was solid. It was fortified. There were no cracks, weak links, or gaps for their blackness. People don't comprehend actual spiritual immunity is active. Refusing their admission, baiting, and drama is a daily choice. Their games no longer work due of that choice. You've outgrown them. Every breath you take dismantles their authority, not simply their presence. Your cleansed soul doesn't withstand a dark person. It invalidates their attacks. Your bloodstream doesn't transport their poison, therefore it can't thrive. Number 12. They couldn't own the undefined. Psychopaths need definitions. They need to categorize others as friends, lovers, allies, or enemies for control and predictability. When they know your position, they can manipulate you. Labels are weapons that make you defenseless, but you weren't their kind. They couldn't define you because you were fluid and changing. You endangered them. Your multidimensionality went beyond complexity. It concerned unknowability. Your refusal to be defined by one identity or role contradicted their expectations. You may be kind. Next, furious boundary setting. Their balance was upset by your paradoxes, layers, and secrets. They couldn't foresee your reaction since you didn't follow their script. This undefined presence destabilized them more than any direct confrontation. Psychopaths love certainty and exploitable patterns. But you walked paradoxically. You were uncontrollable without labels, like water slipping between their fingers. You changed further as they tried to name you, leaving them gasping. You couldn't be owned because they couldn't define you. Possession goes beyond physicality. Psychological, energetic. Their attempts to dominate you failed without a clear aim or identity. They tried to tame a spirit that resisted. In their eyes, that was terrifying. Instead of being loud or confrontational, you were unpredictable and uncontrollable. Not just resistance. You existed beyond their structure. You were free then. That freedom destroyed their grip and authority. Number 13. You made them face insignificance, worse than rejection. You didn't waste time trying to impress them or feeding into their desperate needs. You didn't fight, didn't chase. You didn't participate. You perceived them as broken, desperate, and validation hungry, and turned away. Indifference is a sharper weapon than argument or conflict. Rejection hurts psychopaths and narcissists, but insignificance kills. Their survival depends on being noticed, feared, and in the spotlight. When you ignore them and treat them like background noise, it shatters their carefully crafted universe. Their lofty ideas of power and control collapse when they become irrelevant. They disappear, powerless, empty. You didn't submit by remaining silent. Surgical, exact, and purposeful. Hit where it hurt most. Their ego's urgent drive to matter. You made them face a deep vacuum inside themselves that no manipulation or abuse could fill. They tried to frighten you, but you ignored them. Your reaction was absent. You didn't play their game. Instead of shouting or fighting, you become their reckoning by existing without being touched. Your silence was not surrender. It was decided. You hid their misconceptions with a serenity that shouted louder than any battle cry. Their deadliest adversary, insignificance, was revealed in quiet. Number 14. God let them in. You were the trap. God never lets darkness into your life randomly, especially not for the chosen. Psychopaths think they're hunters, ready to tear you apart. They don't realize they're stepping into a higher power's trap, not just a target. You were the trap, not luck or chance. Universe doesn't waste energy threatening destruction, sends them to show your power. The psychopath wanted to break you, but they found something much more threatening: humanized divine judgment. Your presence was more than a barrier. It executed their deceptions and nefarious plans. They thought they could play games safely. Every motion they took tightened the invisible noose. You lived because of their acts, an unavoidable reckoning. It was like entering an unfamiliar battleground. You were terrain in storm. This heavenly intervention proves their appearance wasn't a test or error, their downfall. Not only did you survive their mayhem, you dismantled it internally. They went beyond meeting you. They faced an overwhelming force. Your strength, resilience, and unshakable soul embody cosmic justice. God didn't reveal your weakness by letting them in. He set them up for failure. You were never prey. You were fate's trap. When they entered, their demise was predetermined. What seemed like victory turned out to be defeat. Psychopaths are sent to reveal your unbreakability, not break you. You were the silent, ferocious, unassailable fortress, not prey. Every attempt to frighten, control, or reduce you was greeted with an insurmountable force. Your true power, forged through insurmountable difficulties. This went beyond survival. There was transcendence. You didn't merely deter the storm. Your calm dissolves it. Remember that quiet strength is greatest. It's the inner flame no darkness can extinguish. You own that flame, furious, untouchable, and victorious. If this message resonated with you and you're ready to stand strong in your truth, subscribe and join this powerful group. If it moved you, like the video. Comment with your tale or thoughts. I want your reply. Share this energy. Tell someone who needs to hear it today. We ascend unshakable.